Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is the Breaking Free Show. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and I am delighted to have you here today. Hope everybody's doing great. We have a wonderful show in store. Before we get started, you want to say hi, Amnon?
Hello.
How are you?
Fine. How are you?
Good. We go through this routine every week.
Yeah,
You good, right? Everything's good.
everything's good.
Weekend, rain,
Weekend was good.
rainy,
Raining, but
rainy, rainy.
what can you do?
Yeah, we've had a lot of rain, and today it's gorgeous. Okay, so we're going to get on with our show. But before we do, I just want to remind everyone to please feel free to call in anytime you want at 919-518-9773, or you can come in on Skype, and that would be voice at computers 2K voice. That's computers, that's plural, the number 2K voice. And then we have a chat, live chat, which you can come in, put your name, nickname, whatever you like under our window, and you can comment, ask questions. Feel free to play with us there. We'd love to have you. So I can't wait to introduce my guest. I just want to get started because we've been talking before the show went live, and I love this woman. I'm almost about to book a plane to London, to England, just to see her. You are going to love her. So her book, she's the author of Help Me, Marianne Power. Can you see this? It's a beautiful book. She's very interesting, has lots of things to share. So let's introduce her now. Marianne, how are you?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you.
So
I'm in
nice.
London.
You're in London. I was in
Yeah.
London once. I'd like to come back. Is it
So
raining?
6 p.m. here. It's just getting dark outside.
Oh, it is. Is it raining in London a lot these
Not
days?
today. Miracle. We've had a beautiful day today, and everyone in England, we go crazy as soon as the sun is out. So there's people in t-shirts, even though it's still quite cold. But
Oh
yeah,
my
it's been a
gosh.
lovely day.
Oh, good. Good. So tell everyone about Marianne.
Oh, well, I'm traditionally a journalist and grew up just outside London to Irish parents, and then moved into London to study and was a journalist there, and lived in Ireland a little bit in my 20s, and then wrote this book, Help Me, which was about an experiment where I was trying to, that's it, an experiment where I was trying to fix my life by following the rules of a different self-help book each month for a year. And by the time I started that project, I was 36 and a bit lost. On paper, life was quite good. I was healthy and living in London and a successful journalist and had friends. But I also was quite unhappy. Most of my friends were getting married and having babies and buying houses. And I was always single, always in debt, and just didn't know what I was doing. And in that point in my life, I was watching a lot of the Kardashians and also reading a lot of self-help books. And then it was one hungover Sunday when I was reading self-help book that I just had this realization that the reason that these books never changed my life was because I never did anything they told me to do. And then that's where I had this great idea that I would spend a year of my life following self-help and taking a different book each month and doing everything it told me to do. And the plan was that by the end of the year, I would be a perfect person, which, needless to say, didn't happen. But the book is about what I learned along the way.
It's a beautiful book. I love the way it looks, and I love the whole layout. It's lovely.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
So you decided to start doing this. What was your first book that you chose to study?
Well, it was a classic, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, written by Susan Jeffers in the 80s. And I had read that book in my early 20s. A friend had given it to me. It was the first ever self-help book I'd read. And at that point, it actually did have a huge impact on me. I ended up quitting a temping job that I was in that I hated. And on the back of reading Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, I called a friend of a friend of a friend who was working for a newspaper and kept calling her until she said, okay, come in, you can make teas. And that was the start of my journalism career. So Feel the Fear had had a big impact. So I wanted to go back to that book. And it was an intense month because Feel the Fear, as many of you will know, says that you should be doing something scary every day. And Susan Jeffers' theory is that if we wait for the day that we feel strong enough or confident enough or prepared enough to do the things that we want to do, we'll never do them. Because she says those feelings of strength and confidence only come after we've done the scary thing. whether that's starting a business, asking for a promotion, asking somebody out. You have to do the thing first, and then afterwards you'll feel better. So I spent a month. I wanted to originally, that my idea was I'd spend a month opening my bank statements and answering the telephone, because I hate the phone. I always think someone's about to call me with bad news. But my friends made it very clear that that was not going to cut it, and that I would have to do bigger things than that. So I wrote a list of everything that scared me, from the small things like parallel parking and driving on the motorway. I'm a nervous driver. To the biggest things I could think of, which is performing stand-up comedy. That was literally the scariest thing I could think of doing. And I did it. And I also jumped out of a plane, and I did naked modeling for an art class, and I chatted up men on the London Underground, which anyone who's been to London knows you're not even allowed to look at people on public transport, let alone talk to them. So I had an extraordinary month. I did more scary things in that 1 month than I'd done in the 36 years before.
That title of that book is something that I've used throughout my career.
Yeah.
Fear the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all different levels of fear, as you're saying, right? So there's the fear of certain things that were really kind of easy, like picking up the phone, to, jumping out of a plane or skydiving or whatever it happens to be.
But what I learned was the big things were amazing when they went. Well, some of the big things were amazing. I actually hated jumping out of the plane. I didn't learn anything from that. So I just learned that I won't do that again. but I was also surprised by what a rush of confidence I would get from doing tiny things that I normally avoided. So picking up the phone when someone unknown number was calling me, and trying to parallel park instead of doing what I usually do, which is park 3 miles away rather than having to try and park in a small spot. And having done those little things that I normally put off doing, I felt really good afterwards. And I think that's one of the lines that Susan had, that doing even tiny things, it doesn't even matter whether they go well or not, just that feeling of taking control of your life in some way, it has a knock-on effect in every area. So, just do answer one email you've been putting off answering at the start of the day, and that's going to make you feel like, you're winning already. And it has a great knock-on effect. So the big stuff, I'm very proud that I did stand-up comedy and that it actually went well. But I'm also got a lot out of doing the teeny tiny things that maybe don't sound so as exciting on paper, but for me were quite important.
Well, I think it's not very often that every day you're going to do something huge,
No.
like your ultimate fear to jump out of a plane.
I would not be doing that every day. No way.
No, nobody will. But those small things, those are the things that they are the ones that block us. Those are the things that stand in our way, that we don't give power to, where we give too much power to,
exactly,
and not enough power to.
And it adds to this feeling of the world is a big scary place and I can't handle it. That's the feeling that I would have every day. And it's not true, because when you do start handling it bit by bit, little step by little step, you realize, oh, I can do things. I can do a lot more than I think I can.
Mm-hmm. Which takes you very far.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we have a phrase here. We don't call those baby steps. We call them freedom steps.
Nice.
Right? Because each one of those, it really takes you to your freedom.
Yeah.
That's terrific. So what was the next one?
Oh, the next one was a book called Money, A Love Story. And that was a revelation, and not in a good way for me. I am not good with money. And I always thought that my problem with money was that I didn't have enough of it. But actually, that wasn't true at all. I was earning a really good living as a journalist, and I was single. I had no one to support but myself. And this book is about our emotional response to money, and how it is a very emotional thing. And there's lots of journaling and lots of going through bank statements and credit cards to really face the reality of, what am I spending my money on? And I found it awful. I spent most of that month in tears. It was, a big, horrible reality check.
So I get it that your book really takes people on a journey with you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It reads like a novel. So people that would never pick up a self-help book in their life love this book. And also people who read self-help books are fascinated because I think many of them, like me, have spent years reading them and not really seeing a big impact because they haven't tested them. So no, it's definitely, my mum hates the word journey. So my Irish no nonsense mother is a big character in the book and people love her. But one of her requests is please don't use the word journey.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah,
I do.
yeah. It's like self-empowered.
Yeah,
I don't like that word either anymore. We
yeah.
need some new words. Maybe your mom can give us
We
some
need
new
new
words.
words. So I suggested that I would use the word spiritual path instead, and she thought that was worse.
So what did you choose?
I don't know how I do it. I think I do use the word journey.
Mhm.
And every journalist or person that writes to me about the book will always go, "I loved your journey, wink, wink," because they know that Mum will be will be cringing.
So when you started out making a study of these books, did you know you were going to be putting it into a book?
Yeah, I
Okay.
did. So I was a journalist and a writer by training,
Okay.
and the desire was very genuine. I was really quite unhappy, even though I felt very guilty about being unhappy because I had so much. I was so lucky and I didn't understand this unhappiness. And so the desire to change was very real. But as a writer, I was also, this would make a brilliant idea, a brilliant book, because I just thought, oh, what a clever idea. And I had no idea actually how messy and deep and involved it would get. It didn't end up being the book that I thought it was going to be. I thought the book would be um, a neat kind of distilling of different bits of wisdom and a gradual journey of me getting better and better and better. And that just isn't at all what happened. But I started it as a blog, as a way of making me accountable. So I was doing daily updates about what I was doing every month and or every day within each month, so that there was no way that I could be a coward and back out of some of my ambitions. So I did the blog and then I went away and turned it into a book. So yes, it's not the book I was planning for it to be. It's much more honest and has a lot of dark bits in it actually.
Mhm.
But it's come out good. I
S-
learned a lot.
Well, you can't plan the learning.
No,
So
no,
you cannot do that.
no, no. I had no idea what I was getting into. I thought that this journey, um, I thought, I would just be on a 12-month kind of self improvement, a bit like going to the gym, and that I would just become a bit perkier and happier each month. And I had no idea that actually what I was doing was really intense form of
Mhm.
therapy in a way. And I was writing this blog, which was becoming increasingly personal with each month. And I was putting myself through things that were not comfortable. So after the money book, I did lots of books, but one of them was an approach called rejection therapy, where I had to get rejected every day by another human being, and it was brutal because as humans, we go out of our way to avoid being rejected. And then I did a Tony Robbins event where I ran across burning coals and dating book where I had to chat up more men, and I really put myself through a lot, and that didn't that didn't go smoothly all the time, and it wasn't something I could just switch off from at the end of the day. Self-help and self-examination really took over. It became my life for a year. I stopped being the old me and became this crazy analyzing everything person.
That in itself is a lot.
It was full on. It was full on. I felt like I was doing my therapy in public while I was doing the blog, which was a bizarre situation to be in. And then the book was a huge exercise in soul searching.
So did you have like a therapist, a coach, somebody you were processing this stuff with?
So no, because again,
Wow.
I did it. So I'll tell you the story. I did, by the end of the 12 months, I was only on book 9 because I kept having these little breakdowns because I really was putting myself through an awful lot. And it was actually a taxi driver, a London taxi driver, one night when I was really coming apart, asked me what did I do for a living? And I said, well, I used to be a journalist, but now I don't know what I'm doing, and told him about this project, expecting for a 60-something London taxi driver to look at me like I was nuts. And he didn't. He just completely understood the scale of what it was I'd put myself through. And he was the one who said to me, are you seeing anyone? Are you seeing a therapist? And I wasn't, because I had this notion, which I now completely think is wrong. I had this notion that you were either really self-indulgent or completely crazy if you went to a therapist. I didn't think it was something that I should do. I just didn't.
So can I
And that
interrupt you?
was
Hold on a second. That's really important. So was that one of those things, and I'm sure there were plenty, but was that one of those things when you reflect back on before the book that you were holding out, not doing?
I'd gone to a counselor once when I was at university, and I'd had a cancer scare, and it was fine, but it just, my only memory was me going in there and crying for an hour. It didn't, and I thought that was okay because I was sick, so I was allowed to go then. But yes, I think in Britain, actually, it's just not part of the culture, and maybe that's changing. But it just, my friends didn't have therapists. It just wasn't something that was done. And so when this taxi driver said it to me, I was really surprised. And he said this brilliant line. He said, you should go talk to someone. And he said, they'll make it about your parents. They always do. But this isn't about them. This is your bid for freedom. And I thought that was so brilliant. I mean, he said a lot of amazing things, but that was this amazing line, because it had got to the point where I no longer knew what it was I was trying to do with this project anyway. And that was it, this bid for freedom. And I did start seeing a therapist then. And so I still do see a therapist. But so for it ended up being the last 4 months of the project that went over time. I was seeing a therapist at the same time. And she was wonderful, because she said, no wonder you've come unstuck. You've been experimenting on yourself with no supervision. And that was really comforting, just to have a professional go, no, you've done a lot. This is a lot you've put yourself through. And then she was brilliantly helpful, because, of course, a therapist can see things in you that you can't see in yourself. Right. And they can ask the right questions and make just one-line observations that can really be so helpful.
Absolutely. I mean, you're so close to yourself.
Yeah, you can't see.
You
and
can't see it.
That's her view on self-help books, my therapist. She thinks there's wisdom in them, and she thinks that they're a great starting point. But she says the limit is that you're trying to change yourself with the same thinking that created your problems.
You can't. That's another book.
This kind of loop.
Yeah, that's another book title.
Yeah.
Or or a quote, right? You can't. Right? It's what, an Einstein quote?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a quote.
Okay.
So that's interesting, because when I'm seeing a client for the first time, and then sometimes I even have to remind them, the reason you showed up is because you're not broken. You know what I mean? You're not. People sometimes think that there's something so wrong with them if they go for help. That is not the case. There's something really right with you.
Brilliant.
When you go for support, for whatever you want to call it. It's and so absolutely. That was a brilliant cab drive. Isn't it amazing? I mean, when you look at that experience.
I
mean, when you look at that experience.
I spent so long.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sorry.
No, go.
I spent so long talking to him, and some of the things he said were so extraordinary. I would have almost thought I'd made him up. It was one of those conversations that it was unlike any conversation I'd had before. And I would have thought I'd made him up, except for when I got back into my apartment, my roommate was like, did you kiss that taxi driver? You've been in there for an hour. So then I knew it was real. I really was in that taxi for an hour, having my soul read, basically. He was amazing man. And I never knew his name. We didn't tell each other our names, and he's in the book, and he's my favorite moment in the book, actually. And I wonder, would he read it one day? And I don't know, but he had a big impact.
That is extraordinary. That is a chilling story. And sometimes I think we don't always, well, maybe the more work you do, but sometimes you don't take a look at those kinds of experiences and realize the magnitude, the
Yeah,
dimension that they sit in.
and I think, and but that was something that you said before our call too, that I think there's huge wisdom in other people. So there's wisdom in self-help books, and I absolutely think there is, but there is also wisdom all around us, whether it's the taxi driver, whether it's your colleague, like people are giving you valuable information and advice and feedback all the time, but quite often we dismiss it. It's and I think I was lucky enough with that conversation to be desperate enough to be so open and transparent with a stranger. And then I was able to hear what he said because I just was ready for it. I suppose I needed his help.
Well, and so desperate and ready. You
Mm,
had done enough work on yourself to be able to hear it,
yeah, and
you know,
understand what he was
and
saying, and
understand it.
so yeah,
Right. So
yeah.
that is brilliant.
Mm.
I love how the British say brilliant so
Yeah,
much.
I overuse that word, and I didn't realize it until quite recently when a friend said, "You say it all the time." So I need to watch it. I need to find a new word.
No, I'm going to take that word. I'll give you one of mine.
Okay, I'll take one of yours.
Yeah, I don't have one as good. I say great a lot, but
Great. Yeah,
great.
we'll swap. We'll
Okay, we're going to
swap. I'll do
swap for,
great.
yes, I'm going to start using the word brilliant. You use great and see what happens. So, so you talked about dating. Did something come out of the dating book for you? Like a
They,
man, a woman?
um, I won't spoil the book because this
Okay,
is a
okay,
kind of
don't.
storyline
Okay,
that goes
okay.
throughout the book. But what I realized with dating, I had had this story in my head for years. I was always single, never had long relationships, and really felt quite weird because of that. All of my friends, not all of them, but the majority were going through those normal life stages of having boyfriends, moving in with them, getting engaged, getting married, having children. I wasn't doing any of it. And I felt hugely embarrassed about this. And I had this story that men didn't like me and that men just didn't find me attractive. And in the dating months, I learned that that actually just wasn't the case. I, in reality, a lot of the men that not all of them, but a lot of them that I smiled at and talked to were very responsive. And I realized that there was something much deeper going on than my idea that I wasn't pretty. That wasn't true at all. I was just terrified. And on some sort of deep level didn't think that I was worthy of being loved. And so I realized that when I think in my case, when I'd been single for so long, there's deeper stuff going on than, oh, there's not enough good men out there, or I'm not pretty enough. That's actually certainly wasn't the reality for me. So that was a whole other layer of soul searching.
And a lot of freedom came with that one.
Yeah, I find the relationship stuff still hard. I think by nature I am one of these people that isolates. Like my safe space is to go off on my own. For other people, their safe space is to be with people. So yeah, ongoing work on that in that area.
Well, I find creative people
Mm.
uh, do like being in their own space and do not like being around a lot of people.
I suppose we have to, don't we? Because there's
Yes,
so much coming from us, and I can't hear myself when I'm with other people. I can't think,
right,
and if I can't think, then I can't do what I do.
right.
Sometimes when I'm with crowds for a long time, if I'm away with people for days and days on end, I feel like I've become more stupid by the end because I haven't had any time to kind of think.
Right. Right.
Then too much thinking alone in a room isn't really a recipe for happiness either. So I have
No.
to watch this tendency.
Right. But we all,
Yeah.
I get the older we get, the more we find our balance. So if you've been
Okay.
comfortable in being with a lot of people, you find that sometimes you don't want to. And if you
Yeah.
find that you like being alone, you find that there's reasons to be with people. So as we get older,
Yeah.
we find more of a balance
Yeah.
in that. But how old are you?
I was 36 to 37 in the journey of the book, and I'm now 41. So it took me a while to write the book. So yeah, I've just turned 41.
Well, you're still young.
Thanks.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah. Life is getting better with every year.
Yeah.
So it's funny, a little bit of me sometimes doesn't like the sound of saying 41, but I wouldn't undo any of it because I'm so much happier. I really am in every way. So if it keeps going like this, by 70, I'll be ecstatic.
Well, I just turned 65.
Brilliant.
Great. Yes, that's
Great.
my word. Great.
Great.
I'm brilliant. You're great. And I'm like really happy. And it's interesting, these ages and the labels that we give ourselves.
Exactly.
Because somebody else put a definition on that number 65, as they might have 41, or maybe not being married by 41, or right. And I don't think I know that we are in a day and time where we get to redefine.
It's wonderful.
These paths.
Yeah. I think there's so much in the world is being redefined at the moment, and it's just brilliant. Brilliant again. So wonderful to see it. You know, there's lots of different ways to live a life, and there's lots of different times in which to do it. Not everything has to be crammed into your 20s. It just isn't. I mean, I love looking at blogs of older women who wear fabulous clothes. So there's a book called Advanced Style, which is an American New York photographer who takes these pictures of just the most glamorous, cool, just fantastically dressed women in their 70s and 80s. And they have got more life in their little toe than I do in my whole body. It's just an inspiration.
And that is why communicating like this, in any way, shape, or form that we can come together and share and be open books, is better for everybody.
Yeah.
No hiding.
Exactly.
You know, somebody suggested that I color my own hair. And because I was talking about, I had a little gray, I wanted color. She said, you can go and buy that stuff and put it in. So I figured, what the heck? What's the worst that will happen? I'll have some red in places I didn't have red before. So so Saturday, I did that. And then I saw my daughters yesterday, and they said, Mom, you missed whole patches in the back. That's gray. And I don't have that much gray. I said, okay, I'll go back and do it again. Like, so what?
Yeah.
It was, honestly, it was fun. It was powerful.
Yeah.
I saved time. I didn't have to go somewhere, spend a bunch of money. It's easy.
Yeah.
And it was like really empowering to know that I can do that anytime I want.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter if I miss a bit.
Doesn't matter. I just go like this and nobody will know the difference.
Yeah.
So did you lay out the books ahead of time, or did you go through one book and then said, okay, now I need this?
Yeah, it was very much a one book at a time. So I had a vague idea that I wanted to do a book on money and a book on dating. And so I had vague ideas of topics I wanted. And then books would just come my way. So there would be books that kept getting recommended to me, or I would need a certain book in reaction to another book. So after rejection therapy, which was really very hard going, I did a book which got a swear word in the title. So it's called F It.
Yeah.
Which is all about just, you know, going easy on yourself, because I needed that. So yeah, it was kind of each month as it came along, I'd make the decision about what to do next.
So do you read self-help books?
Yeah, I do. Not as much as I did, and not with the same desperation. You know, before I used to pick up each book thinking, this is the answer. This is, this is it. And I don't do that anymore. And I'm not drawn to the books that tell me the 10 things I should be doing before breakfast in order to be successful. They don't appeal to me anymore. They sound exhausting. But I do like books still that help me understand life. So I really enjoy the books that Brené Brown writes.
Right.
I featured Daring Greatly was one of the self-help books I followed, although she doesn't like the term self-help, because she says, and I think it's really beautiful what she says, that she doesn't like the term self-help because she doesn't think we're meant to do it on our own. We're meant to help each other.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, there's wisdom, and I read the books because I do think there's wisdom in them, but I'm trying to be better at also talking to people and being in the world. And I've lost this idea, this kind of idea that I had, that I just had to try harder to be better. And I now think I'm doing all right, and we all have good days and bad days, and strengths and areas that we can work on, and that's fine, to just go a bit easier on myself. And yeah,
Yeah.
so that's it.
It really is about freedom. And the
Yeah.
books seem, the ones that I like the best are the ones like yours that share
Yeah.
their personal experience along the way. So you're not alone.
Yeah.
I will often tell people when I'm talking to them about even public speaking, that is a
Yeah.
scary thing to do. And there have been
Yeah.
many times where I've been in front of and here too. I mean, this is in essence public speaking, right? And there
Mm-hmm.
will be times where my mouth will say something I did not expect it to say. And I have to back up and go, whoa, excuse me. That mouth has a mind of its own. And that wasn't me. But that was interesting that it would say that.
Yeah.
You know? You know?
But then also, because I'm having to do a lot of public speaking now with the book, and on stage in front of hundreds of people, and on television and all sorts of places. And I do still get nervous, very nervous. But I've also realized it's quite powerful sometimes. Someone asks a question and I don't know the answer, to just say, oh, I don't know. It's fine to say that. And when you mess up, it is embarrassing. I would rather I didn't, but it's also just not the end of the world. You can laugh and go, oh, I didn't mean to say that, sorry. And actually people tend to like you more for it, because we've all been there. We've all been in that feeling. And yeah, so just to try and again relax with that too.
Absolutely, because we're all not Elizabeth Gilbert, the woman who started the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York.
Okay, I've heard of the Omega Institute.
Elizabeth, I can't think of what her last name is. Broken Open is the name of the book.
Ah, nice. Okay.
So it's about, your heart breaking open.
Yeah.
She says we're all bozos on the bus. And that's what we are. And when I'm in front of a group of people and somebody asks me a question and I don't know the answer, you know what I say?
Go on.
What do you think? It's I do, because I don't have all the answers.
No.
I'll often say, I don't know who has an answer.
Yeah.
And you know what that does? It allows people to feel more connected to each other and to me, and that I'm not some superior being, because I am not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So before we go on, because I have lots of things I want to chat with Marianne about, please feel free, all of you out there, 919-518-9773. You can come in on Skype, computers, that's plural 2K voice. And you can also come in on our chat. We'd love to see you there, ask questions, whatever you like, and enjoy, the conversation on a different level. So what was your and I don't want to ruin the book because it's very interesting. So what other books did you have, a certain experience about that would be something you'd like to share? Besides the money, dating.
Oh, so I really loved, as I mentioned, the work of Brené Brown, and the other one that I loved was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, who it's a book that I'm sure lots of your viewers will be familiar with. And I read that book after going to the therapist and after having my taxi driver moment, and it was the first book that really described this voice in our heads that is tormenting us and was certainly tormenting me. And Eckhart Tolle says that when we walk down the street and you see people talking to themselves, we think they're crazy, but we're all doing that to ourselves all the time. We've all got this voice that's narrating everything you're doing, and why did I say that, and worrying about what's going to happen in the future. And he said it's like records, that we put these records on every day. So the same thoughts will go around our heads endlessly, whether it's about not being good enough at work, or, my friends hate me, or that was stupid, and the why are you eating that record? And it was just the first time I'd seen that so clearly, that all these terrible things I was saying to myself, and then understanding that's human, like that's normal. Annoyingly, this is how our brilliant brains and egos have developed to do amazing things and discover amazing things, but they also drive us crazy.
Right.
And I found that very much a relief to read. And it was like, oh, okay.
I saw
and he
him.
says that this voice.
Yeah, keep going.
Well,
No.
no, just that this voice isn't telling you the truth. It's just telling you stories.
Right.
It's just not. It's
right.
It's not true. The things I was saying to myself. And that he said that it's this voice, this tormentor in our head, that actually makes us physically sick, mentally sick. And he says that as a human, as a species, we're literally insane. We kill each other. We're destroying the planet that we live on. He in that book goes from the very specific experience of what it's like to be a single person to then this sort of global viewpoint of how we're living. And a lot of it is madness. So that book was a real proper,
yes,
heaven's opening experience for me.
I saw him in real life.
Tell me.
Oh my God, he was amazing, because he came out onto the stage, sat in a chair on this big stage by himself, and didn't say a word for probably what might have been, maybe it was a minute or two, but it seemed like 10 or 20.
Yeah.
Because the uncomfort of what you start to think about, like what's he doing, why is he doing it, what's he going to do, when's he going to talk, all that kind of stuff, was so uncomfortable to observe the room. And there was several hundred people in this room, maybe several thousand, and how people were squirming in their seat.
Wow.
And he talked about the power of now, right? The power of this moment. Because what was, you changed you changed what was. When the what was gets to now, you've changed it as it travels through your life. What happened yesterday or last year isn't exactly what happened. And then what's going to happen it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
All you have is the now.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting to feel that uncomfort that he gave us in that moment. It was extremely brilliant of him.
I don't know how much that would have even been consciously planned by him. I think he's living life in a different way to the rest of us. And for him, silence is no frightening thing.
No.
Or no. I met a woman last week who was interviewing me. She was a Spanish journalist who'd also interviewed the Dalai Lama. And she says that interviewing the Dalai Lama is the hardest thing, because when you're with him, all words just go, because you realize how pointless our words are. You sit in his presence and smile and feel love, and that is it.
Yeah,
we use words, don't we?
Yeah, interviewing.
We use words to just fill up goodness. Sorry.
No, go ahead, keep going.
Just that we use words out of, this is a good example now, the two of us crossing over, but using words to just fill these silences out of panic. And it's not necessary a lot of the time. And I imagine Eckhart Tolle isn't a big user of words unless he has to be. I think he doesn't need them.
Right. It is interesting because in the interviewing process, for different reasons, like on here, certainly, you have, if I talk too long or a guest talks too long, somebody's going to leave. If it's not handled well, somebody will leave. So there's a job. But then again, there are certain things that are said that I know that is so simple, but still might need an explanation because they're so simple. And finding the words to explain something simple only complicates it. So and that's in any conversation, communication. it's just so fascinating. And, you know,
Mm.
and you've had so much experience that it's really a joy to ask you questions and to hear your responses and your experiences because it's so in the
Ah,
moment.
you charmer.
I know I'm great. But no, but it's the truth. But it is the truth. I'm brilliant, but it's the truth. Because it's fun playing, it's fun playing with somebody who can, who has answers and experiences and a
Yeah,
sense of humor. That's the other
yeah.
thing with all of this is finding a sense of humor.
Well, this is actually, I think, a big reason for the book doing as well as it has. Is it's very funny. So my intention was quite honest and desperate, and I really did want to find out why I was so unhappy and to change life. But I could also see that a lot of what I was doing was quite ridiculous, and I think if you can see the humor in things, the Dalai Lama is always laughing. And that doesn't mean that he's not a profoundly wise man. You can see the sublime and the ridiculous in every moment, can't you? And I always know when I'm going down a bit of a bad road is when I stop finding things funny. When I'm in a good place, I can see the kind of beautiful ridiculousness of everything. Um, yeah, it's easy with the self improvement and therapy. I mean, therapy is hardly a laugh. I've spent most of my sessions crying, but there's also something funny in look at us human beings and the
Mhm.
things we have to try and do. Um, so yeah, I think it's important to try and keep laughing at yourself in a kind way if you can, and not
Mhm.
take yourself too seriously.
Yeah, when you listen and you hear it, it's really there is a humor behind it. And so I
Yeah.
guess I don't want to pry into your history too much. But what I want to ask you is, did you find at the end of this particular journey that you could say that you were this way because of something that happened in your childhood or your adolescence? Or did you just bypass that?
No, I didn't bypass it because I think we're all the product of how we were raised and how we were taught at school and the countries that we were raised in. And I was blessed. I had parents who were together. I went to a good girls' private school. I had friends and I had my house. So I mean, I was blessed. I have no big trauma in my childhood. Thank God. I'm so lucky. And yet little things can have a big impact. And one
Mhm.
way or the other, I came out as somebody who was anxious and worried and quite hard on herself all the time. And, I wish that wasn't the case, but it did seem to be the way it went. And, I'm also in a society, though, like mum talks about this, that she grew up in a farm in Ireland and she was born in the 40s. She had no clue of whether she was pretty or not, or successful or not. She wasn't looking at magazines or television, or she had no one to compare herself to. You just accepted what was happening. That was how she was brought up. And I was brought up in the 80s in England and looking at magazines and television. And I was just one of these people that constantly compared myself to everyone and never thought I matched up. And that's, I think, quite a product of the times that we're living in, like with young people now. We're talking about social media and like the power of it and how amazing it is, but it's also a huge pressure on young people when you're looking at these images of perfection, which we all know aren't real. But it can breed insecurity. So there was no kind of big moment where I was like, oh, and that happened to me when I was 10 and that was the cause of everything. But there's along the way been a good understanding of how I was shaped and getting to know myself. We're all a mixture of, I suppose, nature and nurture and different experiences. We just come out how we do. And it's really helpful through therapy, I found, to just kind of go back and look and go, oh, okay, that happened. And
Mhm.
that made me feel like that. And
Mhm.
it's a bit like a puzzle, and you can
Mhm.
start to just see it a bit.
Right.
So yeah, that's ongoing. That keeps going, I think.
Do you feel on any level that your life was meant to do this? Like, if you look back
Yeah.
on things that
Uh-huh.
happened, can you look back and go that this was the
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
100%. And I don't mean that, because sometimes when I say that sometimes, and it sounds grandiose, you know, like I, I don't know. A bit of me
Okay.
kind of thinks, is that, yeah, is that just, but yes, I do. I believe
So,
that I was meant to do this, and that the book that I've made is a really having a good impact in the world. And I do think all of life needs to lead up to me doing it.
because I will say that, and this is why we do the show, so people can hear these kinds of scenarios and realize, it's okay to, wherever you are, whatever, it's okay to take your lessons and go forward, and take your lessons and go back.
And then go
From,
backwards and then go
yeah,
forwards
yeah,
again.
yeah, yeah. And I will say that I also believe that my life has led me to doing the things that I'm doing, and it wasn't easy, and it put hair on my chest. So it,
Yeah.
right, and in retrospect, when I look back, and I'll tell a client a lot of times, I sit coaching ethically, and it's not because I wasn't challenged, and you know didn't have a life. And even last night, listening, we had the Oscars were last night, and
Yeah.
Lady Gaga had a wonderful speech, and so did the gentleman who played Queen. I mean, wonderful, wonderful messages about working hard. And it's not
Yeah.
like all of a sudden somebody just handed you the Academy Award.
No. Oh my God, no. Yeah. Yes. No, I absolutely, I've always worked very hard. And this book, when this idea came to me, it was a real 3 in the morning. I was reading this self-help book, and then this idea came to me: don't read self-help, do it. Spend a year doing it. And it was, I got shivers. I just knew, oh, that's your idea. That will be a book. That's, and I said it to my best friend. Like, I didn't say it to anyone for a while. And then I said it a few weeks later to my best friend, who is not a self-help reader. And she straight away was like, that's great. It was just something about it as an idea that the people in my life went, even people, you know, most of my friends and family do not read self-help books. They all just kind of went, yes. And but it was a much harder process than I'd anticipated, the process of soul searching, but also the writing of the book. After blogging, I thought I'd go away and write it into a book in 2 months, because I was a journalist and I could write quickly. I just thought, no problem. And it ended up taking me more like 2 years, more than that actually, of writing and rewriting, because I didn't know how to write a book. I'd never written a book before. And journalism is a different kind of writing. And it was a painful process. I completely ran out of money. I had to move back in with my mum. I stopped going out. I stopped washing. I would just spend day after day after day by the laptop writing this book. And when we first sent it out to publishers, it got lots of rejections. And it just wasn't an option to give up. It just wasn't, because I believed in it. I know this book has a really good heart, and I just believed in it. I wasn't going to accept rejection. And then we got our first yes from an English publisher, and then suddenly, within a space of a few weeks, it was then being publishers all around the world wanting it, and talk of it being made into a television series. And now suddenly, I'm being described as a publishing sensation. All this kind of language gets used, and I love it. It's amazing. But it also could have very easily not happened. It was a long, hard slog to get here. And I think that would be the same with anybody who achieves any kind of success. I mean, my goodness, it's such a huge, long slog to raise children, and anything worth doing. I think there'll be times when it's so hard. But sometimes, if it's the right thing for you to do, then I suppose you don't give up. For me, it wasn't an option to give up, even when I was exhausted and, turning 40 and living with my mum. And I just couldn't give up on it, no more than I could walk out on a child. I just couldn't do it. So that's where we ended up here. So it's funny, sometimes it can look all very rosy on the outside, but anyone who was up close to me for the last few years knows how tough it was.
I know.
And not, I wasn't going down a mine or doing the night shift, or I wasn't sick, so tough is all relative. But I was tested along the way in lots of ways. So that's why it makes it really lovely. I'm so enjoying everything that's happening now, because I also just know it could have very easily not happened. there's lots of talented people out there and things don't quite go their way. So I'm so grateful it has.
Yeah, and for a message for everyone out there, when you have something you're passionate about, no matter what
Don't
anybody
give up.
tells you,
Yeah. Don't give up.
don't give up. Somebody, might have said, "Don't do the phone," or "Don't do the light bulb," and
Yeah.
somebody said, "Oh no, we got to have light."
100%. Yeah, absolutely. So there's an Irish playwright, Samuel Beckett, who has a good line in black humor, and he has two lines that were going through my head almost every day of writing the book. The first line that would go in my head every morning was, "I can't go on, I'll go on." That's one of his lines. "I can't go on, I'll go on." And another one of his lines is, "Fail again, fail better."
Mhm.
So with every sentence that I worried was rubbish, fail again, fail better, fail again, fail better.
I mean,
Yeah.
I said I was not. Writing is a struggle. It's getting better,
Yeah, it's
and
hard.
it's hard, and you have to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. But I'll
Yeah.
tell you, there have been many times where I've been writing an introduction or writing whatever I'm writing, and I pace. I got to go. I go to different places to sit. I mean,
Yeah.
you feel like you're going to jump out of your skin.
Yeah, no.
Sometimes, right?
No.
But you stick with it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
and then you get the
Yeah.
taxi
No.
cab driver.
It's funny that we all want to write books, because actually the reality is so hard.
It's so
And
hard.
but then the rewards are wonderful, because you've created this thing that other people so far away from you can pick up. And
Exactly.
I think there must be something special in a book, that we keep doing it, people keep writing them, and people keep reading them, even in an age when there's so much else on offer.
Mhm.
We do keep coming back to the written word, I think.
Absolutely. So, what would you say is your overall message? And you might have already said it.
Oh,
But what is your overall message?
no, I haven't actually. The message is, I I want people to realize that they're not on their own with their insecurities and fears. So one of the main comment that comes from people who've read the book, which makes me so happy, is, "I feel less alone and less weird." Because I think, especially for 30 and 40 something women, if they're single, there's a lot of shame goes around that. And I write about it a lot in the book. So I want people to realize, like, whatever you're struggling with and whatever those secret shameful feelings you have going on inside your head, you will not be alone with them. You just aren't. We're all much more similar than we are different. And also, just to kind of, I would love it if we were all a bit easier on ourselves. So yes, you can keep working, and I'm terrible with money still, and I want to work on that. And you can do that, but while also going easy on yourself, and not starting from the premise that there's something wrong with you and that you're broken and that you're not good enough, because that's just not true.
Mhm.
We're all doing our best every day. And yeah, I'd love it if people could just go easier on themselves.
Yeah, that would help it. That would help everybody, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
We'd all be much
Right.
happier and nicer to be around, and then that tends to make things go better.
Mhm. Well, we really need each other.
Yeah,
We
that's exactly that. Yeah,
need each other. I
yeah, and
mean,
that was a big learn.
mhm.
Yeah,
I mean, we
yeah,
needed
we
you.
do, and that's
Yeah. No, go ahead.
no, that's a really big part of Brené Brown's message, which is one of the books that I read near the end of mine. And that doesn't come naturally to me, but it's absolutely the truth. She says that is where the healing is, in talking honestly with another human being. That is gonna, and she says that we live in this time when none of us feel good enough. We don't feel successful enough, or rich enough, or good looking enough. And this feeling of not enough leads us to run around in desperation trying to be perfect. We'll do more, we'll try harder, and it doesn't work. You never get to the feeling where you think you're enough. And when that disappointment sets in, that's when we start numbing, either through television or porn or booze, or we try and numb out all our feelings. And she says that the only thing that as human beings we need is each other and connection.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and I can see that that's true. And it's something that we struggle with in our busy lives. We're quite often like missing the really fundamentals that we need as humans, which is time to talk to each other and hug each other. This kind of existing behind a screen and living on our own, I think, is having quite serious effects on us.
Right. Well, I think that's one of, as observing you, and I wouldn't say it's not natural for you, because I think that it's natural for all of us to connect. I just think it's
That's
the
true.
other stuff that gets in the way of what is natural. We are naturally supposed to
true.
connect. And
Yeah,
I
true.
often, like, I have a presentation this week. I'm talking in front of a group of women on Thursday, and my message is about the invisible lines of connection that exist between all of us. We just have to pay attention to find the line. And the line that connects could be, there can be different things on my line to you or my line to Amnon, but nonetheless, there's a line, right?
Yeah.
And so that's really, really important, and to acknowledge all these things. So before we are almost out of time. Hold on. So Amnon, okay. So here are my 2 books up on Amazon: In Just One Afternoon, Listening to the Hearts of Men, and In Just One Afternoon, Listening to the Hearts of Twins. And very soon they will have a buddy, In Just One Afternoon, Listening to the Hearts of Millennials. And they're all ebook and paperback.
Brilliant.
Marianne, it's been just a delight to have you on and to talk about all this with you. And, many of the authors that you have spoken about, you have picked good ones.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I learned from them all.
Yes. Brene Brown. I mean, who does not, people, listen to her TED Talk and just listen to her. She's a wonderful storyteller. She makes great sense. I mean, when you hear sense, right? When you hear something that makes sense.
Absolutely.
You just know, right? And it's just, it's not, it's magic, but it's not magic.
Yeah.
Right? Because you kind of cut through the stuff. So you're doing a lot of traveling. You're sharing this out in the world. And and you're talking to a lot of people.
I am. I've never talked so much about myself in my life.
That comes out naturally. It comes out naturally, and it doesn't come out like, it just comes out like we're talking.
Oh yeah, no, because it's all great conversation. So this is what I love about it, because everyone has life experiences, and what I write about and talk about is just, it's such a common, tapping into common things. So no, it's a joy. I love it. I absolutely love it.
So I would recommend everyone that's listening to our show to go pick up this book, because sometimes in order to define what you're going through, you need the word.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. And I know you're going to find those words in this book. So with that,
thank you.
Yes. So Marianne, it's been an absolute delight. We want to follow your journey, your path, your spiritual path, whatever your mom says. We want to follow it. Okay. And maybe one day you'll come back and share some of your experiences after you've been out here some.
Thank you. I'd love to. Thanks very much.
My pleasure. And everyone out there, I wish you a wonderful, wonderful day. And you're not alone. We're all in this. We're all in this together. So with that, have a great one. Bye.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.